Hello again. This is I'm on a roll this morning. This is Rock Our World, and I'm going to entitle this episode "Is Planet X Real?" And going back quite a few episodes, I spent quite a bit of time talking about Planet X and David Meade and his predictions, and actually, if you go back even further, I spent a bit of time talking about Fukushima, the disaster there. And anyway, I just had this idea. There's a few people out there in this world that are going to take warning. And in fact, God told Ezekiel, and I'm one of the many people in this world doing the same thing, where God says, "You're a watchman. I'm giving you the job to cry out a warning," and then God turns around and tells us, not very many people are going to listen. But if you don't cry out a warning, the blood's on your head. So in other words, the blood's on my head if I don't cry out a warning. And I know most people won't listen. And I know most people say, that guy's full of doo-doo and it's all wrong and it's a hoax and so on. But as the Lord says, the blood's in my head if I don't say something. And now the blood's on your head if you don't take warning. So let's actually roll this right back to Fukushima. If you follow the real news, and you can't find that on CNN, obviously, they're going down, it looks like. You can't really find the news anywhere in the news. The real news is on YouTube, and it's you got to sift through a lot of stuff to find the essence of truth. Anyway, I've done a lot of that research ahead of you, and so have other people. So what I'm going to try and do is voice out another warning as strong as I can get it out there and speed this whole thing up. Research is not finding somebody that agrees with your opinion and then say, "See, I told you." That's not research. Research is putting effort into things. And so I'm going to speed this up for you. I'm going to point you towards some people that I'm going to encourage you to spend 10 minutes to get you started. And before I forget, I'm going to back up to something I mentioned about Fukushima. I started seeing that resurface. Fukushima has not gone away. There's 3 or 4 plants there that are meltdowns. One is melted through the concrete base into the earth, and the radioactive mass is contaminating the whole earth because it's right beside the ocean and between the groundwater and surface water that's being contaminated and lost. There's incredible amounts of radiation that are being mixed into the ocean, and this has been ongoing and increasing for now, I think it's 6 years. But there's 2 others that either have melted down or lost containment since completely, and or they will. And this is just the beginning, because there's nuclear plants all over the earth. And when things start rocking and rolling, read Isaiah 24, all nuclear facilities are going to lose containment. But anyway, back to Fukushima. The ocean, the radiation of the ocean, Pacific Ocean, is rising constantly. And we're getting a good dose of it here in North America because we have prevailing currents and winds coming straight off the Pacific Ocean on the west coast. And our radiation levels are rising constantly. Anyway, this problem has not gone away. And the life in the ocean, the fish life, the whales, the dolphins, everything, they are dying. And this is all back in Revelation if you'll read it. Anyway, I'll leave Fukushima alone. Just remind you that it hasn't gone away. It's just getting worse constantly. And as Revelation says, the first step is a third of everything in the ocean dies, and then eventually everything in the ocean dies. And remind you too that the Pacific Ocean is not isolated. It circulates with all the other oceans, and the least connected one is the Mediterranean and the Black Sea, and but they still are connected, and it's just a continuing problem, continually growing worse problem. Anyway, what I want to do is speed up your research about Planet X. I want you to, and strongly encourage you to look up Steve Olson, WSO. And again, don't look at the one where it says he's all wrong and he's been discredited and found out that he's a liar and all that stuff. That's not what you look up. You can find that on anybody, and that's not research. That's believing gossip. Anyway, go to WSO Steve Olson and look up this first episode, and it's very short. Now the ocean is receding in Pensacola, Florida. January 6th, it was published. And in that particular one, he first of all shows how the sun's rays are very spread out. They should be parallel. The sun is 93 million miles away, and the photo he'll show you right away, the rays from the sun would indicate the sun is up in either under the clouds or above the clouds, like something very close by. Wherever that light source is close by. It's not 93 million miles away. And that logic will make sense to a lot of people. Some people don't have that kind of brain. Doesn't mean they're dumb, but everybody's brain works a little bit differently, and men's and women's work differently, and so on. But that'll help some people get a foothold in calling to question what's going on in our world today. There is a huge cover-up that's gone on forever, and there are really elites in this world who have all the money, or most of the money, lots. As I reported, 85 richest people in the world own the same amount of wealth as half the world's population. 3.5 billion people have the same amount of wealth. The poorest 3.5 billion people have the same amount of wealth as 85 people. How did that happen? Because we don't follow God's system. That's how it happens. The wealthy get wealthier, and they get more and more ways to steal and get rich and hang on to their wealth and so on. Anyway, all the people with all the money, they are calling the shots, not the governments, not the democratic nations, not the people, not the middle class or the upper class or the lower class, but the guys with the money are calling the shots. So back to the sun. How come the light source is up where the clouds are and not 93 million miles away? Anyway, he covers that first in this episode that I have pointed towards from January 6th. Now the ocean is receding in Pensacola, Florida. Second thing he covers is he quickly shows you how to look behind the sun, take an image of it and project it onto a 45-degree angle surface, and you can follow up on that if you're got that kind of a brain. But he shows a picture of, if I remember right, there was 8 planets in a random configuration. It's not lens flares and all that kind of stuff. That's what's behind this. Well, they're calling it a sun simulator, but it's an image of a bright object is what we're seeing up there, not really our sun. And that sounds goofy, but the proof really is there for anybody with a scientific brain if they want to follow through with these things. Anyway, Then, in this same episode, he goes on to a problem he has been dealing with for some time now. His son is in a coma from fentanyl, which is the newest drug on the streets, and it's killing people by the millions. And anyway, it's kind of a medley of things and ideas in this particular episode, but it's short, and it'll help you get your brain working in the direction that this guy is not a crazy man. This is a straight shooting guy, Steve Olson. He's just like you and I. He deals with everyday problems, and he really strikes you as a good and a logical person. And that's who you want to try and get information from. None of us that are listening to you and me and so on, we don't have $1 trillion to build a spaceship and go up and see what's really up there. And if we did, would everybody believe us when we radioed back to Houston? No. None of that stuff's going to help. What you have to do is do your own research, put some effort into it, and then make your assessment of it. Not accept somebody else's assessment. And yeah, I could be wrong. Steve could be wrong. Lyn Leahz could be wrong. Yeah, we could all be wrong. But my assessment is we're all right. I can't prove it 100%, but we all have to make decisions in life. And with informed decisions, then we can make some informed decisions if we equip ourselves. So that's what I'm urging everyone to do, is do some logical things. Don't just go through life listening to gossip, and that's what news is. It's gossip. It's secondhand information. And never check out on it. Or when you check on it, go find somebody that says it's wrong and then agree with them. None of that stuff is research. That's what's called keeping your head buried in the sand. So now I'm going to go on to a second one that he just did this morning. This is January 15th. This is Steve Olson with WSO. Look this up and listen to it. I think it's 3-4 minutes long. So you're only going to invest 20 minutes of your life to watch these two programs. And the second one's called And They Wonder Why We Get Paranoid. And he's talking about this sudden phenomena. Why are all the big nations of the world, sending rockets up all of a sudden? They're sending up who knows what, satellites and telescopes. And anyway, why is this sudden flurry of sending rockets up into the upper atmosphere? So anyway, watch these two episodes. You've only invested 20 minutes of your life, and if that will get you thinking that maybe we're not all crazy, then follow up. Steve has hundreds and hundreds of episodes. Just start sorting through them, and you learn pretty quick which ones to spend your time on and which ones maybe not. And he will lead you to guys like Jeff P. And these are all guys that they're not crazies. There's enough of those out there. And I also would like you to, we'll call it the religious side, but I don't call it religion. I call it God is very real. He created all this. And in fact, he created all these things that are happening. The Planet X, the Nibiru, the brown dwarf star that is red and has wings, and he made these things, and they're all unfolding exactly the way he planned it all to happen. And he's asking us to believe him and obey him. So anyway, this is my latest best attempt to get a few people out there, to encourage a few people out there, and hopefully hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people out there to stop wasting their time on worthless things in an eternal sense, invest a little time to equip yourself with what's really going on in this world. Things really are getting messed up out there. And then find out what you can do about it. Because really, God has given us thousands and thousands of details of what we can do as human beings, as individuals, to be equipped for what's coming ahead of us, and to how to respond to everything that's coming down the ropes. And why God is doing all this. I know these glasses look real goofy with the reflections. This is a very, very detailed sequence of events that are unfolding. And the sign of September 23rd was very, very real. That was and is the beginning of the tribulation. And this is what I've been teaching the last while. And again, I don't have everything right, but this is the Jubilee year. This is the year God's giving us to speed up. That's what happened when David Meade thought it was going to all happen right away. God's giving us this year of grace, so to speak. The tribulation really has happened, but it's not starting with a bang like we thought it would, or thought it could. He's giving us this year of coming up to speed, and we're well along on this year. So I'm encouraging everyone to do the research, get serious about what's going on in our world. I would encourage you actually to pray for Steve Olson's son, because a lot of our children are going to be facing this. This fentanyl thing is very real. I mean, it's maybe a little bit smaller thing in the huge picture, but it's suddenly become a big thing in the drug world. And we got kids out there, like millions and millions and millions, that are falling into these traps. So hopefully I got a few of you to get started on your new walk. And I want you to switch gears real quickly from all the terrible things that appear to be beginning to happen to your walk with God. That's the focus I want to get you going on. And you will meet the Lord in a very real way in a home study environment. I'm not saying leave your church if you're a churchgoer. I'm saying get a few friends together, 2, 3, and start a home study. And I'm creating a resource for you, but there's all kinds of resources out there. In fact, these 2 episodes by Steve, why don't you start with those? Just sit down and take 20 minutes, and 3 or 4 or 5 of you watch it together some evening instead of watching TV, and then have a real good group discussion on what you watched. And what will happen is you will find that the Holy Spirit shows up and does some very real, tangible things amongst you. And you will be so blessed by what happens, you will want to do it a week later. In fact, you might bump it up to 2 meetings a week. And you'll soon have so many people in your basement that you'll have to get a second study going, because it's important to keep these things small so that everybody can participate. And a church setting has a different value. We're not saying leave your church unless the Lord tells you to. And again, that's important, to learn to hear the Lord's voice. Just reminded of a vision. I've pushed Rick Joyner's books, not him. His theology is askew. Hopefully it's got a little straighter in the last number of years, but God gave us a vision through Rick Joyner, and now you can get all 3 of these visions I keep mentioning in one book, and I'm going to post that in my description. One of our gals has done the research and found this book that's now this updated book that's got all 3 visions in one book. I think it's called it's a trilogy. That's in the title. Anyway, I'll give you the I'll give you the title in my description. So in Rick Joyner's vision, now where did I start on this rabbit trail? I do that, and then I don't remember where I started. Rick Joyner, in part of his vision, he how does that connect with the mess in our world? No, it's not coming to me. So I'll write it in the description too. So anyway, I will sign out. This is Rock Our World with Neil Buchanan.